Welcome again. Like I mentioned, we are going to have a chat on AV tech and career path with Omar Colomb. He is a seasoned video engineer, project manager, and technical director with over 16 years of experience in video production and live events. So, welcome, Omar. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me so much. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. We're happy to have you. Let's kind of start from the beginning. Can you just touch on how you got into a career in AV? It's a very specific industry, but also I'm sure very exciting. So I'd love to hear how you got started.
Yeah, so you'll hear different stories about this. So I'm a second generation. My father owns an AV company. So it's how I knew about the AV industry in general. He works in a specific niche of AV called corporate AV. So we do a lot of shows with Fortune 500 companies. So I knew about this as a child. It wasn't my first career path either. I did other things before I did the AV side, but we can get to that later. So when I left the military, essentially, I joined back into the family business and started doing AV, and I worked from the ground up essentially. So I didn't fall into the industry. I knew about it. I was aware of it. I was very interested in it. And honestly, the more you do AV and the more you interact and engage in this industry, the more you realize AV is everywhere. You just don't realize that the level of AV that you do have around you is a constant. So I knew about the industry growing up. I loved the industry when I got involved with it. I've been doing it, and this industry for me has been an awesome experience. Depending on your particular lifestyle and how you like to do things, this industry pays really well and it does really well. And it's also expanding. I've traveled half the globe in this industry for work. I've traveled all over the US, all over UK, half of Asia and China. Like it's just been a fun ride, and it's only getting better from here.
That's awesome. Wow, like the travel alone, I think would be great for anybody who wants an industry to
Hell yeah.
travel or enjoys travel. Let's kind of loop back to what you mentioned. So corporate AV, because when I think of AV, there's concerts, there's, live events. But tell us a little bit about like a typical workflow with corporate AV.
Yeah, so for everybody who's watching here, I can't see faces right now. So if you guys want to raise your hand digitally, we can go into that. But think about AV as a whole, right? So audio visual lighting is a term that we use to describe AV, but it's an acronym we use to shorten things up. But if you are in the theater and if you're in theater industry, everything in the lighting world for theater gets pulled into the corporate AV world. If you're in the rock and roll industry or live events industry, for example, everything audio gets pulled into the corporate AV world. So there's two big sectors right there that do a lot of stuff with AV that isn't just specific to what I do in particular, but the skill sets and the gear is this exact same stuff. Then you have broadcast, you have sports, you have ESPN, which I know sounds similar, but when you get into the weeds of it, they're a little bit different. So sports is a much more heavy video side. Audio is much more tracked individually, but the video is a very, very key thing, and lighting, not so much, right? But if you want to do lighting stuff and you want to go on tour with that, or you want to do theater with that, theater has the most intensive cues for lighting because you're doing a run by, or it's called a cue to cue or a run a show, and the light cues are intense. But if you want to see like when you go to a concert, right? We call it we're painting the walls with lights. That's concert style stuff. If you want to get into audio, obviously audio has a bunch of prolific things you can do, right? I can do post-production, pre-production. And what I mean by that, sorry. So the pre-production side would be like a recording studio, right? I can get an artist in there, do music, do sound, do recording or vocals, and then work on that information. The post-production side is for video and audio as well, when you're doing digital remastering of content or when you're doing the cinema side. So on the cinema side, all the cameras that we use in corporate is also used in cinema. So those skill sets transfer. So when you learn AV, you can branch out to multiple industries from learning one of these things. So you're not locked into this one industry over another. You have skill sets that can transfer and extend your skills and your abilities into other industries other than just corporate AV or theater or sports or broadcast for the news stations or virtual production. If you guys got into that, like when The Mandalorian came out, virtual production was huge a couple years ago, right? Like LED walls, those are skills you learn in AV that transfer to a bunch of other disciplines. So it's a very expanding industry once you start seeing where it is and where to go with it. Hope that answered the question. Sorry.
No, that was great because it really covered like how many sectors of AV or how many career paths. It doesn't just have to be music or it doesn't have to be television. It could be lighting, which is incredible. And I feel, really makes a show sometimes. Just let's get a quick pulse. As Omar mentioned, raise of hands. You can use the reaction button or drop in the chat. Who's here that's interested in a career path in AV? I would love to get a pulse check.
I got
Awesome.
one.
Like we got one. Awesome. So, it's obviously, a real high vibing industry, probably energy wise. Let's talk about some skills or personality qualities that you feel like would be fit for a career in AV, or would
Yeah, so you
those
gotta be
work?
crazy. I'll go with no, I'm just kidding. You gotta be a little different, right? So if you are a 9 to 5er, we call them, right? If you're a 9 to 5er, you want to work at 9 o'clock, get off at 5 o'clock, be home with your family. This industry is a little bit hard to do that in, right? Not impossible. There are people that do that. It's not impossible. But a typical day for corporate AV is 10 hours. A typical day for cinema is 16 hours. So the hours are long. We get paid well for that, but they're not consistent, right? So we get paid really well, but your time is demanded of you on site when you're there. So you have to be present. Another thing to add too, like I know you guys are still young, you're in high school and you're getting out of this and you're looking at where to go. I'm telling you, these skills can build on top of each other. But what's more important right now coming out of the industry is your people skills. So like you have technical skills and you have people skills. What I mean by that is like imagine going on a tour and you think of your top three friends right now. Imagine going on a tour with your top three friends. You would have a blast. You get paid, you do what you like to do, you have your friends with you, it'd be an awesome show. But what if you had another person in the mix who you're just like, when Omar comes on show side, man, that guy's a little bit of a stickler. He always wants coffee. Like it's not he's messing up the vibe. So personalities is becoming more of a thing because these crews are starting to travel together. So especially in the tour industry, it's a bigger thing that like I need someone who's technical in this, but I'm willing to be more forgiving for mistakes on show sites and events and a live event too. Because a live event, right, you only have one shot. CEO comes on stage and talks and the microphone's off. That's it. There's no retakes, right? This isn't broadcast. For live events, it's a one-time thing. But if you have a personality that you help out the other crew members, you're there and you're personable, you're there and you're polite to the clients, you own up to the mistakes. Those skill sets that you have as well will also continue to get you that client and continue to work with them because they'll say, hey, you know what? Omar messed up that cue for 10 seconds, but you know what? He's a good dude. He helps out the crew in the ins and the outs. Everybody likes working with him. He's a good, but versus, man, Omar never misses anything. He's an awesome audio engineer, but man, is he hard to deal with. Like, do we really need him on this show? I'd rather take, Tallo over here because they're not the most savviest, but they're I can manage them and they're personable. So there's skill sets, there's soft skills and there's hard skills. And it's one of the things in the industry where people get really focused and go to school for, right? Is on the hard skills. And you need that, right? Because in this industry, specifically in AV, there's two things we factor in. And this is not a fake it till you make it industry. This industry will eat you up, chew you out faster than you get in if you fake it till you make it. But there's a skill set side, right? The more skills you have, the more your career can go up. And then there's the hospitality side, right? So we call that the soft skills versus the hard skills. You need to have both of those, and they need to come together in order to be an effective team player in this industry. And again, you're working long hours. So can you go and do one meal a day, right? And a 10-hour day and not be grumpy half the time? Can you do a 10-hour day, 15-hour day, 18-hour day and not just start like lashing out at people because you're either hungry or tired? Because you know what? So are they. They're also hungry and tired because you're in the same boat as they are, but don't lash out. Manage your emotions better, right? So there is a demand for tech skills, but there's a demand for the soft skills even more right now because of that situation. Like, man, I got this guy who's really good, but man, when he's around the crew or my client who's paying us, who's signing the checks, I just can't have this guy. Like, I don't care how good he is. I'd rather take XYZ because they're just better. So I think this industry is ever expanding and there's a lot to do. There's a lot to learn. But if you start like again, this is my weak part, right? Is emotional intelligence. Again, raised by my father. Sorry, I'm going off topic. Raised by my father here, joined the military, very alpha male mentality. It took me a long time to like, oh, people are people, right? Like we're not all here to be like alpha male gung ho, like let's get it done, let's do it all. Like people have, feelings too in lives and things like that. So I think once I focused a little bit more on the soft skills versus the hard skills all the time. And sorry, what I mean by soft skills, like the personal skills, hospitality skills, versus just like I need to be the best video engineer in the entire world all the time. My career skyrocketed from there.
So it's really important to have those communications, managing people, probably, optimistic, upbeat, not
Yeah.
being angry. But let's talk about like what are maybe the top two or three skills technically that would be really important to learn, especially like at the start of the career or, maybe to learn while you're still in high school.
Honestly, I know this. Listen, I was really bad. I was really bad at this. I was really bad at math. I was not good at math, but I wish I would have done better at math. Math was the most important thing as a video engineer. I do a lot of math now, a ton of math now. I don't do more hard math, multiplications and dividing is mostly what I do. But I wish I would have done it better because I'm still like I'm on the calculator half the time, and I'm doing bigger numbers. I'm not doing like 1 times 2 and stuff. I'm doing like 1920 times 1080 equals 2 million. I'm doing big numbers like this. You can Google that, by the way. It's 2087. It's 2,080,070,000. That's memory though. But anyways, I was not good at math. So when you go on job sites, you got to figure these things out. I'll give you an example. Okay. like I said in the beginning, everything in this industry builds on each other. So I'm a video engineer. I'll give you a chain, for example. If you were in high school right now and you have a TV production class, right? If you learn a camera, here's the chain, right? There's the camera chain, then you have the camera shader, then you have the video engineer. So the guy that switches the camera, the guy that shades the camera, and the guy that operates the camera. That's, you can move up the chain that way, right? I can be a camera operator, then be a video engineer, sorry, camera shader, then a video engineer. That skill set could then transition in video, right? We're just talking about video right now, not even audio and lighting. Now I can go from that and go to what's called a screen switcher, which is the next stage above that. And that's dealing with layers and multiple outputs to multiple destinations. Think about the arenas you go to where you see those big LED walls. That's using a screen switcher, right? So again, those skills are transferable once you start learning the fundamentals, the knowledge, okay? Then from that, you can go to what's called the media server realm. So all those skill sets build up to the media server realm, and now you're going to play back content at that higher resolution that makes sense to play on like an Ultra Festival or the AAA Arena or the Miami Dolphin Arena that has massive screens going everywhere. Or if you watch soccer, any of the Emirates events, right? Or NBA or whatever, all that content is made by humans in the AV world, so we can play that out there. Those skills transfer and upgrade the more you learn them. So what I recommend if you're going to learn anything in AV is master one of them. Doesn't matter what it is, audio, video, lighting, master the one console or the one piece of gear. And I'm not saying like, man, I got to be the best in the world. I'm just saying master that piece of gear. Read the manual, right? Which I promise you the manual's gonna be enough for the first setting of this. Read the manual, RTFM, right? Read the manual, learn that piece of gear inside and out, because now when I use that same gear, when a camera is a camera is a camera, right? What changes, right, is the camera that I'm using. So Panasonic, Sony cameras, they have a lens, they have a CMOS chip, and they have white balance, black balance, and a color wheel. Every camera on the market has this in some form or another. Cinema cameras, the advantage is that lens that I use now has a variable focus. So I can take my focus and change where that focus ends up being, right? Again, I learned an ENG camera. I have to learn one more thing now for a cinema camera. Well, so now I'm going from ENG cameras to cinema cameras. Okay, what do I have to learn from there? Well, I've learned an ENG camera, which what we started talking about. I've learned an ENG camera. Well, a cinema camera also adds on the back end ISO control, and I forgot it. ISO control is something else, but a photographer has those abilities, right? And it's f-stops. I have more control of my f-stop and more control of the ISO controls. ISO control allows the camera to kind of be brighter or dimmer, and I have more control of my f-stops, more fine-tuning control on a cinema camera. Again, ENG camera has the same things, not as much control though, but because I learned it fundamentally, I have to just learn one new thing. So whatever you're going to do in AV, master the one thing that you're going to want to play with, whether it's a console for video, for audio, for lighting, whatever you have in front of you right now, master that. And I guarantee you, when you go into the workforce and you start touching other stuff, you're gonna see that concept like, hey, okay, I know audio for I know what a fader is. A fader is a fader is a fader. Any console you touch in the world is all a fader. It does the same thing. It brings up the impedance or the volume level of the sound coming into the board. What changes is my abilities on that board. So if you have an analog board right now, for example, that has low, mids, and highs, that is the fundamentals of an EQ. The next level up is 34 band EQ. So learn whatever it is you have in front of you right now. Read the manual, learn that thing inside and out, so that when you go into the next thing, it's like, okay, I know that's a camera. I can identify that. It should do these things, right? It should send an image from the lens to XYZ. I can do that. What else does this thing do that I don't know? And then that's just, again, pulling up a manual and skimming it really quickly now, because you've already read one manual all the way and you know all the bells and whistles, and saying, oh, it also does this, it also does this, it also does this. Cool. And then at some point down the road, right? So let's say 3 to 5 years later, after doing this and just learning and reading the manual, nothing crazy, you're going to start saying, oh, this one works better for this scenario because it has these functions versus this scenario because it doesn't have these functions. So my key takeaway is just learn one thing, master that one thing to the best of your abilities, and it'll help you out the rest of your road. Build a strong foundation of foundational knowledge, which you guys can do now. You have time, right? When you get into the workforce, time is is a commodity, but you have the time now to master those things, get hands-on with those things, play with them, mess things up, doesn't matter, whatever the case is, to then really build on that skill set. And as you grow into the industry and do more things, you have a strong foundation to build onto versus, I've never seen this camera, I'm just going to use it. And the problem with the using mentality is like, oh, how do I use this? Someone tells you, oh, you're going to zoom here, focus here, and point this way. Great, you're using the camera, but do you know how to operate the camera properly? Like, how do I sell a shot? How do I even look for what a shot looks like? Like, there's other things involved in that you miss out on by just doing it versus researching it. So yeah, my 2 cents about gear wise would be whatever gear you want to touch, read the manual, master that one piece to the best of its ability so you can use that thing all kinds of ways. And then anytime you go to a bigger console or a bigger setup, it'll just be the same thing with either more or different features.
Excellent career advice across the board, not only just applying to AV, but building those basics, like you said, those fundamentals.
Yeah.
But speaking of all the technology, building on that, reading the manuals, building up to other advanced pieces of equipment, what in the industry that you've been over the last 16 plus years has been one of the biggest technological advancements that has changed what you do in your career?
Oh man, if anybody plays video games here and uses Stream Deck, that thing is gold. Stream Deck allows you to take something. I got a thumbs up. Yeah, if you're a Stream Deck user, that will expand your workflow. And my industry uses that thing like there's no tomorrow. So if you know OBS, I'm gonna tell you right now, my nonprofit created a program. We haven't launched it yet, but my created a program with OBS that teaches you how to also use. Yeah, I got an OBS down here. So OBS, fundamentally speaking, when you program it properly, can also act as a video switcher, and you can program a Stream Deck to also do what a video switcher does. OBS does inputs, right? It does layers, which is two of the main things you need on it. It doesn't trigger, preview programs, so the green and the red lights that you get used to after a while, but it is a fundamentally programmable switcher. And you can use Elgato equipment to bring in content like you would on a switcher. So Stream Decks are very programmable. They have a massive community, a global community, right, that has contributed to the programming of that program. And my industry uses that all the time. And actually, to be fair, most guys are using two Stream Deck XLs to control their systems. And we're using them in a very advanced functionality to get the shows done the way they need to get done. We are operating it and automating it up, 9 ways to the sun at this point to do things that it's not even meant to do because Stream Deck will let us program it to do those things. And another thing too is like Stream Deck is such a cheat code. If you know Stream Deck really well, you can get a product that you don't even know how to run yet, and you can use your Stream Deck to run that product. I'll give you a great example for anybody if you guys want to Google this at some point. Look up Black Magic Design ATEM switchers. Okay, Black Magic Design is the name of a company. ATEM is just a switcher name. That switcher can be completely programmed by the ATEMs, or sorry, by the Stream Decks. So even if you don't know how to use a switcher and you don't know how to use a controller yet, if you know how to use a Stream Deck, you would know, hey, I plugged it into input one and I need output one to go to that screen. I can program a trigger for that in Stream Deck because I know how Stream Deck works. So again, it's a big cheat code to also help you in the industry. And as you get into this, you start using more and more of it. And then you build your libraries, you build out your presets, you build out your templates, and you can speed up your workflow tenfold with the Stream Deck. So if I had anything, if you guys aren't doing that already and you're doing it now and you're just playing around with it, I'm telling you, it is a massive tool to use if you guys want to really get into industry in the long run and become an operator, which you got to build your way there, right? No one's going to trust you to operate $1 million worth of gear or show that they're making $1 million on if you don't have experience. So they're going to test you. You're gonna do build stages, build LED walls, build projectors, do projection blending, projection mapping. You're gonna do audio line arrays. You're gonna do all these things hands-on before they put you in a show position. But that Stream Deck will make you functional. And there's other smaller things we do with small breakout rooms that you can also use Stream Deck on. But that is a 10x in your toolkit cheat code to like, hey, I have a Stream Deck. I kind of know how to use this stuff. Just give me a little bit, and then you can automate it, and then sky's the limit. It's an awesome cheat code.
It looks like we have some advanced
Yeah.
students in the session today who are actually using it. So that's awesome. So keep on using it, learn it, sounds like, because that looks like it might be part of the future of AV.
Yeah.
And so with that, like what I just want to touch on something, AI is everywhere. Is AI something that you feel is also going to be incorporated into the AV world?
Yeah, AI is a double-edged sword. So we do use AI already, not the way you're thinking though. So we do have AI trackers for PTZ cameras. So PTZ stands for pan, tilt, zoom. These are cameras that are robotic cameras. They kind of move around. They get used a lot more in sports, and they can track people. So we do use AI to help, and what it does is it does either a body or facial recognition in real time, and then we say, yes, that's the face we want to track, and it'll track that face. It's not perfect yet, but it's improving very quickly, just like AI is, and we
Wow.
are slowly incorporating and using it more. Yeah, so there are cameras we already have in play that are getting smarter and better at doing this. Sports is a big push for AI right now because there's a lot of technology in that. Another thing about AI that we're using too is like AI is just it's changing the game for copy paste for what we do a lot of stuff, right? So if you're into, I know we got OBS fans in here. If you guys use OBS a lot of times, there are programs now to help automate things. Those are AI based. They are different, but you can now go to like ChatGPT, for example, and say, hey, I need to make a config file or a file for XYZ. Can you write this code for me? And it's going to write it for you so you can then put that into your system. And they're not 100% every time right now, because also you need to have some knowledge of what you're doing, but they're getting better at taking our generic terms and languages, figuring out what we're trying to do by, some communication, and then getting a code written out for you. So we are using that a lot in industry as well to automate more things and to make things more seamless and effective. But what AI is doing, I think personally, is it is expanding our ability to do the R&D and to do the research for our ideas. And that's where AV is getting a real big change in the way we operate and do things, because it's saying, hey, I have this idea for how to do something better. Let me put it into AI, test out the idea, test out the data, because AI essentially is a database of all humans' knowledge collection. It's all collected into this massive database we're calling ChatGPT at the moment, right? All of human existence knowledge is stored in there in these files, and we can access that now by asking key questions. Hey, if I wanted to make a product for XYZ, what would be the best thing to do that historically speaking, or what would be the challenges we've already had, and how can we maybe solve that? AI is helping us speed that process up in the AV industry and what we're doing. So that's being seen a lot more too. And guys are using it to prototype and test things out in a digital environment before they even go to launch it. So there's been a lot of products coming out recently that have backing from AI to help them get it to launch, because it was like, hey, this is a problem we wanted to solve, and it wasn't a product yet, and we use this to get to that point. Another one that's being used too is to troubleshoot problems we're having. As you know, as any industry is out there, there's always some kind of bug somewhere we got to fix. AI is helping speed those problems up. So there's products. I'll give you guys an example. If you want to look up Pixel Hue right now, they are a 7-year-old product. They are now this year starting to dominate the screen switcher market. Before was Barco E2, Analog Way, and Christy Spider. They are not hiding that they use AI, and they've in 7 years gone to have a product now with development and improvements on it that took these other companies 20 plus years to get to, because they have now this AI database to say, hey, how do I do this or improve this or get this going? And they've expedited their products and gotten up to speed and gotten things that people need, because they've been able to, again, fast track that stuff. So AI is becoming a very powerful tool in all things we're doing, but it's also, if used properly, in my opinion, it can really expedite what you're doing in the real world if you use it as a tool to educate you and to do as a resources for seeing like, hey, what has worked and what hasn't worked, and how can I, with what we know now versus then, change to improve these things. That's my
Getting
two cents.
data-driven results, working more efficiently, that's
Yeah.
definitely where we're moving, not only in your industry, but all across the board. So that's really important. Thanks for touching on that. Regarding that and how, AI is testing these different softwares, and, how do you see the AV industry evolving regarding like remote and virtual productions versus being live?
Yeah, so I'll give another shout out to OBS here. So OBS and vMix became a big thing during the pandemic. OBS is called OBS. I want to say OBS Ninja. Correct me if I'm wrong out there. I think it's OBS Ninja or Streaming Ninja, something Ninja. But it's like a free way to get multiple streams into the OBS and use it like a Zoom call. That was used a lot during the pandemic. It's still used now to this day. vMix is another very powerful system. But what these they're called virtual switchers have done, and essentially is they are very powerful programs. OBS is very powerful, but also very CPU, GPU heavy, depending how you're using it. vMix is very GPU heavy, CPU heavy, depending how you're using it. So the software's like, hey, you could download me and use me. You better know how to use a computer though, because I don't dictate what I go program to or download it to, right? I'm downloaded to whatever system you want to download me to, pay the fee to use me, and hopefully your system can handle what you're trying to do, because it could be one Zoom call to one destination. Again, not like trying to market myself, but if you guys look up AV Educate on Google, we have 100 plus educational videos for the AV industry. That entire thing was done with 2 Zoom calls and OBS. And we did a meeting room. We did OBS to do all the content, all the overlays, all the switching for the presenters, to the PowerPoints, to the graphics, to the intro video, to the music. Everything was done through OBS, then to a live audience, essentially on another Zoom machine. So OBS has been a massive player in the streaming world. Zoom, as we're doing here today, is a massive player in the streaming world. Actually, a buddy of mine, Andy Corlucci, who's part of the Zoom meetings team, started off in the AV industry, wrote a program for Zoom, and now works. He's one of Zoom's top guys for the meeting side of what they're doing. There's a plethora of things to go out there to like expand on it, but it's when it comes to streaming, it is coming out there. If you guys have time, right? If you have the time, I highly recommend Dante. Dante is a audio-based networking routing system. Also, if you guys don't know what NDI is, learn NDI. These are network-based or IP-based audio video routing systems that don't need to have XLRs, HDMIs, DMXs. And then another note for you guys as well, SMPTE 2110 is another big name coming out right now. The industry as a whole is going IP-based. So we are going virtual, we are going IP-based, we are going into the cloud. AWS is used all the time, Zoom is used all the time. I mean, more than half my meetings are on Zoom calls. Google Meets is like, it's kind of there, right? But Zooms is the main bread and butter for government, political, schools, you know, Joe Blow down the street in his little mom and pop shop, Fortune 500 companies, they're all using Zoom at some capacity, and we're all streaming to Zoom as well. Anything virtual right now is using Zoom or one of their, it's not AWS, sorry. So Zoom also has a back end that you can pay like a white label for your Zoom stuff. They also have that as well, but Zoom is everywhere and it's not going to slow down. Streaming is not going anywhere. Streaming has actually become the new kind of frontier for live events. You demo and test on a Zoom to see if there's an interest in the community you have or in the world. And if it does well and you make some money off of that, you take that money now and then you do a live event, an in-person event, right? So people come to this and they gather together and they get hands-on. So it's being used as a testing ground as well. So once it started to where it was, because before I was like, oh, this isn't possible, only broadcast people can do that. I was like, no, man, we can do it virtually too. And pandemic proved that, and we've just been excelling that forever. Now, when I tell you like the anecdotal information you learn in AV, a Zoom call is less of a delay than a phone call is. So a phone call is 0.583 milliseconds of a delay. Zoom calls are 0.432 milliseconds of a delay. That's faster than the phone call you're having with your friends on your iPhones or Android, whatever your preference is. That's how like there's so much investment infrastructure wise on what's going on. And then if you take that Dante class I said about, sorry, round robin here, Dante class you talked about, that will teach you all the things you need to know about the IT infrastructure to do AV. It's just part of the course that they do. That first level one is part of that. Level two is more of the fundamentals. But that knowledge also transfers to NDI. And NDI is also another powerful tool. And if I'm sure the OBS user here who does Stream Deck is also using NDI. If you guys aren't, it's free, it's open source. It just connects everything to everything. You just need to download this one program called NDI. .tv and it'll get you what you need to go. But the industry does use that as a whole because it is an effective solution, and we're only improving on that. The only delay right now with the live side and the virtual side is what's called gen locking or frame syncing of cameras. In the virtual world, when everything is in the virtual world, it's okay. But when you have a real environment with a real what's called a CMOS chip and what's called like a rolling shutter, so it's this continuation of a rolling shutter on your cameras, that needs to be synced digitally as well to other locations. That's what's being solved right now, and that's called an FTP they're doing that with. We're getting off topic here, but that's being solved right now. That's the next frontier. Once that gets solved, video, audio, lighting will all be able to do online at some level. So it's not like it's coming, it's here. And if you guys have the time now, I highly recommend you specialize in that stuff because by the time you get to the workforce and start doing stuff, within the next 5 to 10 years, it will be one of the primary workflows because that's how fast we're moving into that direction.
Wow. So streaming virtual, it's not going away. It's actually working in tandem to create live events or complement live events. And what was the work profession or trajectory you just mentioned? So we can just repeat it again.
Yeah. So you can be like a stream tech. That's actually our position. OBS is an actual position now. IT network engineer. That's a real position, especially in sports. Sports does a lot of internet, a lot of IP-based stuff. So they have a guy that's all he does is manages those ports and those sockets and the connections for the virtual to make sure that the signals are going where they have to go. Those are real positions. Streaming engineer is another position. That's a real name, a real position. These guys are making $100 million or $100,000 a year and just doing that.
Wow, that's incredible. So those are jobs that you can look forward to the future. Start, using those math skills in high school, just to be extra successful in the future of the AV workforce. I want to circle back to workforce, and you had mentioned AV Educate, and you kind of mentioned the military a little bit here on this session. So I'd love to kind of get an overview of your career path, not just in AV, but like how did you get started? I know you mentioned you had some influence from your father in the AV career, but we'd love to hear a little bit about your background and then what you're doing now aside from just your AV job.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I come from a broken family. My father raised me. My father owns an AV company. So that's how I knew about the AV industry. In high school, like you guys are now, when I was in high school, I was in South Florida and I had a TV production class. I did that all 4 years. Every elective, I did the same class. My last 2 years, I did theater. Mr. Bonnet was the teacher for that, and Mike Howard, or Mr. Howard, sorry, Mr. Howard was the teacher for theater production. Mr. Howard put me on shows or put me on pilots with him. So if you guys ever watched The Barbershop or if you ever watched Just Dance, I was part of the pilots for that. Just coincidentally, not a shout out, coincidentally, I was part of that, which is really cool. And it's kind of it was that extra step. But my teacher was like, he saw potential in me. And because my father worked in the aviation industry, it was about a mile walk from Davie High School to his office in Sunrise, Florida. So I stayed after school and did a bunch of editing for the school. So I was by the last 2 years, I was a lead theater tech and I was a lead producer for the school's news. And every Friday, I had a channel came out, and I learned Final Cut Pro, learned how to produce stuff and everything. More because it's like at 2:30 when school ended, I had another 3 hours to waste, so I would just stay at school and do stuff. So my teacher really helped me out with that. However, because I came from a broken family, I was worried about college and money, and not that I come from a poor family, just in general, I wanted to make my way in the industry. So I joined the military. I did 6 years in the military, 2 tours overseas. I started off infantry, then went recon sniper. I did that for 6 years. After my second tour, I just had a bad experience, got out of the military, and then decided to come back into the family business. When I came back, my dad had always drilled into my brain, like, don't ever rest on your laurels or rest on our family name. So what I ended up doing is I ended up working in his warehouse for 6 years. So 6 years in the military, 6 years working for my father, and I worked my way up in the industry from, essentially what he did into became a lead video engineer. After 6 years, I had to talk with him. I wanted to make more money. I wanted to get it on my own and do more things. So again, don't rest on my laurels. Make your own way. Went into freelancing. I literally, again, started like kind of from the scratch again. Even though I was a lead video engineer with this company, I started from the scratch because again, I didn't want to be like, oh, this is Oscar's son, or this is, you worked at Media Stage for 6 years. So I went back in labor providers as a stagehand at the bottom of the bottom. And within 6 months, because of my skill sets and my personality and just getting along with people, I moved up very quickly and became video engineer for a lot of other companies that I hadn't even known before. But because I did the stagehand work and I was hired to just work these local gigs, I met a lot of other companies, a lot of owners, a lot of producers who said, hey, you know more than you look like. I'm like, oh yeah, I can help out with this department, XYZ. So just being, I don't say yes man exactly, because I'm not definitely not a yes guy, but like being helpful and being proactive and not disappearing on my clients and just being like willing to help and solve problems with them and not create more problems for them, just help solve and like be part of the solution essentially. I was able to move up very quickly. And then from there, I did another couple years and then started my company called Projection and Video. That's my primary business for LLC. It's how I get contracted out at this point. That is it's a medium-sized company. I wouldn't say it's a big company. We only have 2 employees for that, but that's a medium-sized company we have. And then out of that necessity, similar to what you guys are doing right here, I started a nonprofit called AV Educate. Another way to give back without conflicting on the brands, essentially. So when you guys start doing your own business, you got to think about yourself as a brand and the business you have as a brand, and then the politics which comes into play here, which I know you're not thinking about now, but who you surround yourself with, the companies you work with becomes part of your brand. So I wanted to separate that so that I can do the education without affecting my other business and my partners in that business. So I started the nonprofit to educate the industry in AV. And essentially, my only rule for that company was to not ever do labor. So we teach a lot of people, we do a lot of stuff, and we provide that list to our partners that we train with, but we don't physically do labor for that. And what that has allowed me to do is to show like this is not a grab for money or to do labor, and our price points are not made to like manipulate anything. We are generally trying to give back to the community because we want to see it succeed and grow as a whole. And there's a need for it. So unfortunately, in my particular sector for corporate AV, for what I do, there is not really a school for this. Full Sail would be the closest, but they don't specialize in what we do. So they do live events, they do broadcasts, they do post and pre-production, they do event planning, but they don't specialize in the live event side as far as corporate AV. So it's a little bit of a different monster. And I didn't want to create another brick and mortar type of institution. So I wanted to create a way for people to learn, again, foundational knowledge that I knew that they could build on. And that's why I started the nonprofit for AV Educate. And that took me, 5, 6 years to build up. I started it right before the pandemic. Took us a couple years to build up, and then yeah, so that's my whole like journey as an AV guy.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's great that you're able to take what you love, give back to the community. I love what you touched on about your building yourself as a brand because it is a very entrepreneurial or freelance industry. If you want
Yeah,
it to be, if you want to have your own business, which is amazing, you don't have to work for anyone else, I'm sure, but there's still a lot of work and sweat that goes into it. And I love how you mentioned, it's important to surround yourself with the people that you want as your brand as well. Networking seems to play a big role in this career
yeah.
field, right?
It's massive. It's a massive role, and it's unfortunate. I hate to say like, oh, like you got another who open doors. That's also not fully true. It's being able to be a workable. And I know you guys are hearing this probably a lot right now, and if you haven't, I'm glad to tell you this. But like the basics, right? Being on time, being presentable, not smelling bad, having good hygiene, like those things are key. That when you don't have that industry, you just stay as a stagehand, right? And a lot of times, I know a lot of guys who I started with who are already years advanced in me into stagehands, and they're still stagehands. And it's if you are stuck in something, it's either, I mean, it's you, right? But it's either your mentality or the way you present yourself. Those are the two things you're gonna have to work on. So you could have the greatest skills in the world and have all kinds of things, but if you don't have what other people around you are expecting you to have, you're not gonna go anywhere. And I not to call my brother, we used to call him the Viking. The guy had, Viking beard, long fucking hair, and he's a big, brawly dude. Like I'm in shape, but he was a big man. But he needed to change a career, so I got out of my industry. And within 1 year, he went from Viking biker looking dude to like corporate guy every day, all day. And because I was like, listen, you have the skill sets. You don't look like what these people look like, unfortunately, so they don't want to hire you. The guy that the guy that's paying $1 million for this conference who's in a suit 24/7 doesn't want the dude with a beard looking like a biker to run his shows. He wants the guy who's going to put a button-down shirt on and have a clean beard. You can have a beard, but be clean about it, right? And you can have long hair, but be clean about it. Don't look like a hobo. But like those are the things the people like, oh, this is who I am, my brand. It's like that's cool. I can tell you right now, I'm gonna stand up real quick here. I have on a long sleeve shirt. I have pretty much like 15 of these shirts. Okay. I have tattoos. I have my whole side tatted. I have a tattoo here. I'm not like corporate 24/7. But when I'm on show site, those don't exist because my clients I know don't like that stuff. I'm still a person. I still have my own brand, my own identity, and everything. But I have that, and I've seen from being in the military to being out of the military, when you wear that uniform, people treat you completely different. When you're not in the uniform, they treat you a different way. And I've seen the difference firsthand because I've been doing it. I've also seen the difference when I wear my clothes that I normally wear, which pretty much is this all the time, versus when I like wear other things. And you're like, oh, you have tattoos. I didn't know you have tattoos. And it's like, why does that matter? Does it matter? Doesn't. But people do. And the problem is when you get to these bigger positions and you're dealing with tons of money, everything becomes talkable. Everything's an issue. Everything's just something to talk about. So when it comes to building your guys' brand and building your reputation, those are things that you guys gotta just think about, right? Like do you, be you, but the people around you that are making the money, if they look different than you, they're gonna notice and they're gonna say something. So like just be cautious of those things. Don't not be yourself for somebody else. I'm not saying that at all. Do not be yourself for somebody else. Please, by all means, be yourself. Just be cautious, right? There's ways to dress and be yourself that just like, hey, you don't like that stuff? Cool. I want my $600 check. I'll put on a polo for you.
Yeah, all about finding balance.
Yeah, 100%.
You don't have to lose yourself, but you also have to try to fit in a little bit. Well, we're going to wrap up soon. And just to be mindful of time, I just want to give anyone who is joining our session today to either put in the chat or come off mic and ask Omar questions live. This is your opportunity to ask any question you want about the AV industry or his career path. So, anybody have any questions? Feel free either, like I said, to hop off mic or throw these in the chat.
Unless I did that good of a job, there's no questions. Or I did that bad of a job, there's no questions.
I think
I don't
it's
know.
the first one. You were very thorough for explaining this industry. I even feel like I have a lot of takeaways from it. One more question before we let everybody go. What is one piece of advice that you would give our students that are tuning in today that you would recommend to maximize their long-term success or get them started or get them, even if they're like just a tad bit interested in AV after this session today? What's one piece of advice?
I know it sounds probably cliche right now because of what we're doing, but like never stop learning. I cannot tell you how many books I've read over my lifetime, how many videos I've watched over my lifetime, how many like just side chats I've had with people. I love so can I go on a little rant here for a second about this? We're running out of time.
Like a 30-second rant.
Okay. Okay, I'll try. So when you have conversation with people, right, the more you know, the more you can connect dots. If you can connect the dots, that will transition you to a much higher plane of knowledge when you can connect dots from multiple things. And what I mean by that is like, again, like I was talking about with the camera train, right? Camera shader, video switcher. Connecting those dots to how those things connect together and how that knowledge can expand on itself is the key to all knowledge. But being able to read, right, gives you this, it opens a gateway to that knowledge because now you have a reference of something to understand. Talking to people and getting hands-on on stuff gives you a visual reference to now connect the verbal and the read and the auditorial to the actual physical, right? So if I say a layer, if you don't know what that is, I'm just saying words at you, right? But if you Google or read about layers and you learn about layers, when I talk about layers to you, you're like, oh, I know the layers, I know what a layer does. This conversation makes sense to me. The more you learn and expand on your vocabulary and read books about different things in the world, the more you have conversation with people, the more you can connect these dots together, the faster you can expand on those knowledge because everything has root fundamentals. They just go up from there. So my best advice would be to keep learning, keep doing things, because the more you see and touch and hear, the more you can connect dots when you have these conversations, the easier you can learn and pick up on things. That's been like my biggest success. I love talking to people about AV and about tech and hearing their stories, their perceptions, how they do things. And because I have a fundamental knowledge of that, I can go, oh, I see how you do that. Or, oh, wait, how'd you do that? Oh, hold on, talk me through this process because I want to do that too, right? If I don't have that though, I'm just talking words at you. You can't figure it out, right? So you need to have those fundamental knowledges to get there. That'd be my 2 cents. Keep learning, keep reading. Books are cheap, right? Read a book a year. Books are cheap. Classes are pretty cheap. Once you get out of there and do technical stuff, they're pretty cheap. YouTube is free, but it takes your time. So you're paying for your time there at that point. So think about that, going out into the world. Keep learning, keep doing things. Yeah, there's tons of free stuff out there, but free stuff is surface level. Read a book to dive more into that stuff and get more involved in what you want to know about. It'll help you, I promise.
Excellent advice. Excellent. Omar, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your story, sharing some great insights about the AV tech industry, where it's going, which is really exciting. And to all the students for coming in and joining the session today, thank you. And we hope to see you at the next one. Everyone have a great day.